Hey guys, tonight we re-slipping into rough-spun blankets and waking up on a straw mattress that smells vaguely of mildew and last week's goat accident. You're a medieval peasant and you're pregnant in a medieval village? Congratulations. No one claps, no one cheers. Your reward is a backache, a steep drop in personal privacy, and a daily routine that absolutely does not slow down for your condition. The rooster's crow feels like it comes 3 minutes after you closed your eyes, and your entire body feels like it's aged 50 years overnight. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is. Always love seeing how many of you are drifting off across time zones. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You crack open your eyes, it's barely dawn, your husband's already pulled on his tunic, and gone out to feed the animals, and the fire in the hearth is nothing but ashy breath. Your back aches, your feet are swollen, and somehow the baby inside you is staging a medieval joust against your bladder. Welcome to the start of your day. Pregnancy doesn't exempt you from work here, far from it. In a small village, every hand matters. You swing your legs over the bed, avoiding a wayward chicken that's made your sleeping corner its personal nest. It's not a joke. Chickens roost wherever they please, and if you think your pregnancy grants you a private chamber, you've been reading too much courtly romance. You start with fetching water. The bucket is wooden and leaks slightly, but it's what you've got. The well is 2 houses down, and by the time you're back, your arms burn and your ankles throb. A neighbor nods at your belly without smiling. Another one gives you a look that could mean blessings or bad luck. Hard to tell. The cottage is dim and cramped. Smoke curls from the hearth as you stir a weak gruel made from oats and a suspicious turnip. There's no real breakfast for the pregnant. You eat what's available. If the harvest was poor, your portions are the same as everyone else's, maybe smaller. You've heard tales of women wasting away during pregnancy, giving what little food they had to their husbands and children. Self-sacrifice isn't noble here, it's survival. Dressed in desperation, the smells of the village aren't friendly to a queasy stomach. Animal dung, fermenting cabbage, and souring milk create a pungent bouquet that would flatten a modern stomach. You try not to gag as you scoop pig slop. Morning sickness is real, but no one calls it that. They might say you're melancholic, or that your humors are out of balance. If you faint in the field, someone might mention demons. Not joking, actual demons. Scholars still argue whether hysteria in women was treated more harshly in villages or monasteries. But let's just say neither had a gentle bedside manner. As the day unfolds, so does your discomfort. You're expected to card wool, mend clothing, maybe weed the kitchen garden. And while you do all this, your body isn't just sore, it's under constant surveillance. In a village of 24 families, everyone knows you're pregnant. That means everyone feels entitled to advice. Don't eat onions, one woman warns. They'll make your baby cry too much. You're carrying high. Another says, must be a boy. It's all guesswork, delivered with complete certainty. Your clothes no longer fit. Your smock pulls tight across your stomach, and the cloth rubs against already irritated skin. You tried sewing an extra panel into your best shift, but the stitching's uneven, and you pricked your finger 5 times. Blood on linens. Hard to clean. By midday, you pause to rest, sitting on an upturned bucket in the shade of the barn. Your feet are bare, they've swollen too much to fit your shoes. You look down and realize they're dirty, cracked, and starting to bleed. You don't have balm, you don't have time, you have chores. This is your life for months. You'll keep working until the very last day, unless something stops you. In this world, many things can. Infections, accidents, premature labor. There's no hospital, no emergency carriage, no prenatal vitamins. One wrong turn on a muddy path and you might lose everything. But you don't think about that. You're not allowed to. Instead, you hum a lullaby your mother used to sing, even though you can't remember all the words. Here's a historical fact to flavor your day. In 14th century England, the average woman had 6 to 8 pregnancies in her lifetime, but only about half her children survived infancy. There's no polite way to say it. Every pregnancy feels like a wager, and the house usually wins. Lunch is more of the same, if anything, thinner. You sip broth while chewing a blackened crust of bread so hard it could be mistaken for roofing tile. No one prepares special meals for you unless you're rich, which you're not. You do have one tiny luxury: a dried plum saved from last year's market. You suck on it like it's treasure. By afternoon, you feel the baby kick hard. It stops you in your tracks and makes you spill goat milk all over your skirt. You press your hands to your belly and breathe deep. That moment, the first kick, is one of the few joyful things you have to yourself. It's a private miracle, however fleeting, but even that's not yours for long. Your neighbor sees your expression and guesses the reason. She smiles and says, "That's good. Means it's strong. Probably a boy." They kick hardest. You smile back, but you're tired of the boy guesses. You'd rather hear silence. Evening comes slowly. Chew the tools, shoo the chickens out of the house again, and lay a blanket near the hearth to dry. Your husband returns with a rabbit he caught in the woods. You skin it while he sharpens a stick. No knives tonight. The village blacksmith is working on repairing your only blade, and it's taking a week longer than promised. You prepare the rabbit with salt and wild thyme, a poor woman's feast. As you chew the meat, you think about names, something strong, something good. You don't say them out loud. That would invite fate's attention. As the fire dies down, you curl up beneath the wool blankets. Your body aches in new places. Your ribs, your hips, your back. You run a hand over your belly and whisper promises. You'll keep this one safe. You'll try. Here's the quirky tidbit for the day. Some medieval women believed tying iron, keys to their girdles, could ward off evil spirits from the womb. You don't have iron, but you do have an old horseshoe nailed to the doorway, just in case. Outside, the wind picks up. Somewhere in the distance, a dog howls. Inside, you sleep, but not deeply. You're never really allowed that. You wake before the rooster this time, and not by choice. Your stomach is waging war on itself again. You sit up fast, which is a mistake. Your head spins, and your bladder joins the protest. You lurch to the door and barely make it outside before retching into the dirt beside the goat pen. The goats blink at you, unimpressed. One even bleats like it's mocking your performance. Morning sickness isn't reserved for mornings, and it certainly doesn't ask permission. There's no ginger tea, no saltine crackers, no doctor to call. You reach for a clump of mint growing wild near the latrine, something the old midwife said might help. Tastes like weeds and hope. Inside, you try to move slowly, but your body doesn't cooperate. Your joints are stiff, and your ankles feel like they've swallowed pebbles overnight. You try to ignore the taste still clinging to your tongue as you heat a thin porridge over yesterday's embers. It smells slightly of ash and something worse. Your husband eats his share without speaking. That's typical. He nods when he leaves again without speaking. That's less typical, and you wonder if he's nervous about the baby too, or maybe he just didn't sleep. He's been chopping wood late into the evening, storing more than usual. Bad winter is expected again. By mid-morning, your stomach flips a second time. You press your hands against it and will the contents to stay put. There's too much to do. Your neighbor sees you wince and comes over with a leather pouch of crushed dried herbs. Wormwood, she says, takes the nausea away, but don't drink too much or you'll see ghosts. You take a pinch anyway. Better ghosts than goats, frankly. Historians still argue whether such remedies helped or harmed more. Herbal knowledge passed down orally meant dosages weren't consistent. Some concoctions eased pain, some stopped hearts, some did both. But when the closest thing to a physician lives 2 villages over and charges a silver coin per visit, you take your chances with what grows in the hedgerow. Back in the cottage, you try to distract yourself with spinning wool. It's coarse and greasy and clings to your fingers. You twist the fibers until they resemble thread, occasionally glancing down to your belly. It still feels surreal, this new life growing inside you, though there's nothing romantic about it. Not in a place where babies are born on dirt floors and colds can become coffins. When the nausea finally eases, you're called to help butcher a pig. The neighbors say it birthed too many runt piglets, and they've decided to cull the smallest. You help as best you can, though the smell of blood and steam sends a fresh wave of queasiness crashing over you. You turn away mid-task, pretending to chase off a crow. No one mentions it. Pregnancy here earns you no special mercy. You're expected to carry on, same as always. And if you faint, well, drink some nettle tea and get back to it. The laboring doesn't stop just because your wom's on double duty. The midwife visits around noon. She appears at your door like smoke, sudden and quiet. Her eyes are sharp, her hands calloused. She doesn't smile, but she nods in approval when you mention the baby kicked again. A strong one, she says, her voice like cracked leather. That's good. Means it wants to live.
Ow.
She presses an ear to your belly. You stare at the ceiling beams, counting cobwebs while she listens. After a while, she stands and says, "Keep drinking chamomile. Don't lift the firewood anymore. And don't let that priest tell you this is punishment. Life begins where pain resides. That's always been true." You want to ask her what birth is really like. You've heard the stories, some whispered, some shouted tales of women tearing like parchment, of babes born blue and still.
Ow.
But you don't ask. You just nod and offer her a cup of warm milk, which she accepts before vanishing into the mist again, like a fable. The rest of your afternoon is spent gathering firewood and trying to mend your husband's only good tunic. Prick your finger again and again, the blood spotting the thread like berries. You keep going anyway. There's no one else to do it. By evening, you collapse onto the stool by the hearth. Your hands throb, your belly feels tight. Can't tell if it's the baby or just too much cabbage. Your neighbor drops by again, her third visit this week, and asks if you've considered naming the child after her brother. "He was strong," she says, "died from a bear, not from weakness." You nod politely, but you've already chosen a name. You whisper it to yourself sometimes, like a secret charm. Here's a strange but true fact. In parts of medieval Europe, women were told not to stare at fires during pregnancy for fear that the baby would be born with red hair. It wasn't a joke. It was deadly serious. Red hair, they believed, was a mark of the devil or a cursed soul. You stare at the fire now anyway. Your hair's brown, but who knows what your baby's will be. If it's red, maybe it'll at least be warm. You finally crawl into bed. The mattress is little more than sackcloth stuffed with straw, and every lump finds a new part of your spine to torment. Your feet are swollen and cracked, and your lower back screams. You shift, you sigh, you whisper the name again. You wonder quietly whether you'll live to say it out loud. And then there's the dream. You're in the forest, alone. The trees around you whisper in Latin, and when you glance down, your belly glows like a lantern. A fox darts past your feet. Crow lands on your shoulder. You follow a stream that runs red with wine. In the distance, someone sings in a voice that sounds like your mother's, but you know your mother's been dead 5 years. You keep walking. When you wake, the fire has gone out, and the baby kicks again, like it's reminding you it's still there. You smile, just a little. Then you roll over, hoping the cramps don't come back before morning. You wake to the sound of your own stomach rumbling, a cruel joke considering there's not much to eat this morning. Outside, the crows are already bickering on the fence post, black silhouettes against a gray sky. You rise slowly, bones creaking like old hinges, and take a moment to breathe through the latest wave of nausea. Third morning in a row, you've given up asking if it ever ends. Breakfast, such as it is, consists of a heel of yesterday's bread, softened in weak broth. You scrape the mold off first, not all of it, just the greenest bits. Bread was precious, even bad bread. You chew slowly, imagining you're eating roast goose with honey turnips. The illusion doesn't hold. Still, your body needs something. You're feeding too now, after all. You crave salted figs, fresh cream, a real orange, the kind the traveling friars talk about from southern ports. But those are for nobles and bishops, not muddy-footed women who patch their roofs with bramble. In fact, cravings themselves are viewed with suspicion. Too much longing, the village gossip says, might leave a mark on the baby's skin. A red birthmark shaped like whatever you couldn't stop dreaming about. You once laughed at the idea. Now you sleep with your hands on your belly, just in case. Today's work is weeding the barley patch. You kneel in the dirt, praying your knees won't lock, and tug at stubborn roots that seem more determined than the crops themselves. You're slower now, heavier. But no one tells you to rest. If anything, you get more work. Keep moving, and the baby will come easier, they say. It's folk wisdom, repeated endlessly. Active mothers, they believe, bleed less. Historians still argue whether physical labor during pregnancy actually helped reduce complications, or just wore women down to the edge of death. A neighbor stops by, a toothless woman who never learned to whisper. She leans on the fence and shouts, "You're glowing. You must be having a boy." You smile and nod, not bothering to correct her. You've heard every gender prediction in existence. If your feet are swollen, it's a girl. If you dream of fire, it's a boy. If your belly is round, a girl. If it's pointed, a boy. If you sneeze on a Wednesday, twins, none of it means anything, but in a world with so little certainty, you hold on to the stories anyway. They're better than silence. The local children trail after you like ducklings as you return from the fields. One of them asks if your belly hurts. Another pokes it and giggles when the baby kicks in reply. You give them each a berry and tell them to hush. They scatter. You shake your head, half amused, half exhausted. Back in the cottage, you wash your hands and sniff your underarm. You stink. Not because you're unclean, but because soap is a luxury, and the nearby stream is freezing cold. Bathing is a rare event, usually before feast days or childbirth. You once tried a full-body rinse in spring, and your skin turned blue from cold. Never again. Lunch is turnip stew again. You boil it slowly over a fire that crackles with damp wood. You've added a pinch of rosemary, dried last summer, and hoarded like treasure. It helps the flavor, or at least the smell. You eat slowly, chewing more than necessary, just to feel like there's more in your bowl than there is. Here's your mainstream fact. In many medieval villages, food was strictly seasonal. Pregnant or not, you ate what was available. And in winter or drought, that might mean almost nothing. Malnourished mothers often gave birth to weak or premature infants. It was a cycle as cruel as it was common. By early afternoon, the sun breaks through the clouds, just enough to make you squint. You take this as a sign to walk to the edge of the village where the midwife's hut squats beneath a leaning tree. You've heard she's got a new herb for easing cramping. When you arrive, she's not home, but her apprentice is. A girl no older than 13 who speaks with the confidence of someone who's seen things she'll never unsee. She gives you a pouch of dried leaves and says, "Steep this in water and drink it at dusk. If you feel dizzy, lie down. If your vision goes strange, pray." You thank her and promise to bring back fresh eggs if your hens ever lay again. They haven't in weeks, probably scared off by the neighbor's cat, which looks like it's killed more chickens than the village butcher. As you return home, you pass by the village baker. The smell of warm loaves makes your stomach twist, not in hunger, but in grief. You once bought sweet bread from that bakery to celebrate your first pregnancy. That child never took a breath. You remember the taste of honeyed crust, the feel of warm dough between your fingers. It still hurts. Ow. You don't speak of that baby, not even to your husband. Loss here is like rain, frequent, expected, and barely mentioned. You just bury it deep and go back to work. You stop by the herb woman's fence to gather a handful of wild garlic growing between the stones. She sees you and waves, then hands you a small cloth-wrapped bundle. "Lavender," she says, "put it under your pillow, keeps bad dreams away." You thank her, pressing the bundle to your nose. It smells like something sacred. Here's your quirky tidbit for the day. Some villagers believed that tying a moleless foot to your waistband would ensure an easy birth. I haven't tried that one yet, but you have seen a mole. And let's just say it didn't look thrilled about the tradition. Evening sets in slow. You hang damp linens near the fire and light a beeswax candle, one of your few luxuries. The flickering light paints the walls with dancing shadows. You run your fingers over your belly, now round and firm, and hum the same lullaby again. The one with half-forgotten words and a melody that sounds older than the cottage itself. Your husband returns with a bundle of kindling and news that the miller's wife gave birth this morning. A girl, he says, healthy, took all night. No priest in sight, just the midwife and luck. You nod and swallow the knot in your throat. You envy the miller's wife for surviving, and fear you might not. Before bed, you steep the new herbs in hot water. The taste is bitter, almost metallic. You force it down, then rinse the cup with ash and a scrap of linen. You place the lavender bundle under your head and lie still, staring at the low ceiling. Sleep comes slowly, but eventually you drift into dreams. This time, you're underwater, floating near the surface. The baby kicks, and you feel it as ripples in the water. A fish swims past you with human eyes. You open your mouth to scream, but bubbles rise instead. You don't drown, you just sink. You wake with a start, heart pounding. The fire's burned low again. Outside, the wind howls through the thatch, and something skitters across the floor. Probably the cat. You hope it's the cat. You breathe. You listen. You wait for sleep to come back. You wake with the dawn's first chill breath, puffing faintly in the slanting light that pokes through cracks in the wattled walls. The ache in your lower back hasn't left, and your belly feels oddly heavy, more a burden than a miracle. You lie still for a moment, staring at the thatch above and thinking about breakfast, even though your appetite fled days ago. By now, your pregnancy is the worst-kept secret in the village. That's not just because of the way your belly leads the way everywhere you go, or the way your gait is slowed, but because news travels faster than crows here, and nothing moves quicker through gossip than a swelling stomach. After hauling yourself upright, you drag a rough shawl over your shoulders and shuffle to the hearth. The fire is nearly out. You coax a few embers back to life, blowing carefully so the smoke doesn't sting your eyes. The small victory of warmth is short-lived. Your hands still feel numb, and your feet are cold, swollen shapes poking from the hem of your nightdress. While you break apart a hard loaf of porridge, you hear a tap at the door. You already know who it is by the sound. 2 quick knocks, then a shuffle. The local wise woman, of course. She arrives like weather sudden, often inconvenient, and usually impossible to ignore. She breezes in, her cloak trailing muddy streaks, clutching a bundle of wild herbs in a small brown bag. "For you," she says, setting them down, "protection and strength, and a charm for the pain." Her eyes dart to your belly, which she pats with a cool, dry hand, muttering words you barely catch, some Latin, some older than Latin. You've heard stories about her, how she can stop a fever with a whispered spell or turn spoiled milk sweet again if she feels generous. But her most valuable skill, at least to you, is her knowledge of childbirth. She's delivered more babies than anyone in living memory. Some mothers say she brings good luck, so others whisper about babies born wrong, with extra fingers or strange birthmarks. But you're too desperate for hope to ask questions today. She pulls a small rabbit's heart from the brown bag and drops it into your palm. "Carry it close. Keeps away the bad spirits," she instructs, eyes narrowed. You nod, tucking it into a scrap of cloth and tying it around your waist. The thing is oddly warm, maybe just from her hand, maybe from something else. You don't want to think about it too much. She sets about inspecting your cottage, peering into corners and scolding you for letting the wash hang too long. Damp air brings sickness, especially now. She pokes at the fire, sprinkles herbs into the embers, and finally offers you a sip of something sharp-smelling from a stoppered bottle. Just a little for strength. It burns all the way down, but your headache fades a little, and your nausea lifts for the first time in days. As she packs up to leave, she leans close, breath like nettles. "Don't tell the priest I was here. You both know why. The church frowns on magic, even if it's the only thing keeping you from going mad with worry. He'd rather see a prayer than a poultice," she sniffs. "But prayers don't fix a breach, baby." Historians still argue whether wise women and midwives were more feared or respected in medieval villages. Sometimes they were both, living on the knife's edge of necessity and suspicion. A single bad birth, and the whole village might turn on them. But in the privacy of kitchens and candlelit corners, they were trusted with lives. After she's gone, you notice she's left a sprig of rosemary tied with red thread near the door. Another charm, or just a reminder that she was here? Either way, you leave it alone. You return to your day's work feeling lighter in spirit, if not in body. The sun has climbed higher, the dew dried from the fields. You carry your heavy bucket to the well, meeting the eyes of an old neighbor who grunts, "Not long now, eh?" She smiles, almost kind, and offers you a seat on the cool stone. You sit, grateful for a moment's rest, and listen as she shares the latest gossip. The miller's wife has a cough. The blacksmith's youngest has been stealing apples. But of course, the juiciest subject is always you. "I heard the priest is praying for a boy," she says. "He thinks the village needs more strong arms in the fields." You can't help but laugh. If only prayers could decide such things, there'd be no daughters left in the world. The conversation shifts, as it often does. 2 childbirth tales, some hopeful, some terrifying. She describes her own mother's labor, how they hung iron scissors above the bed to cut evil spirits, how the local wise woman sprinkled salt around the room. You listen, smiling politely, though your heart pounds faster with every tale of things gone wrong. She ends with a warning. "Never let a cat cross your bed when you're re-sleeping. It'll steal the baby's breath." You nod, though you're more worried about the cat stealing your dinner. Back home, you pause at your doorstep to brush off your skirts. Your hands wander instinctively to your belly, stroking gently. You feel the faintest nudge, a reassuring little kick. It's proof of life for now. The afternoon is spent patching a torn sleeve and watching the clouds gather over the hills. Rain again. It always seems to come when you're feeling most heavy. You pull the shutters tight and add another stick to the fire, wincing at the way your joints creak. The wind picks up, you wrap yourself in a blanket and sip the last of the wise woman's tonic, savoring the warmth in your chest. You hear distant singing from the church, drifting on the breeze, a choir practicing for a feast day. Maybe, or just the priest and his lone faithful assistant. Their voices blend with the whistle of the wind, and for a moment you feel a sense of peace. You close your eyes, listening. The baby stirs and you hum along, making up your own lullaby. The tune is clumsy, but you're too tired to care. You're still humming when a sharp knock startles you. It's the parish priest, checking in on the village's expectant mothers. He greets you with a strange smile and a wooden cross clutched tight in his hand. He glances around your small home, eyes pausing on the sprig of rosemary before he looks away. Keeping healthy, he asks. You nod. He recites a short blessing in Latin, then warns you again not to put your trust in charms or women's tales. Only prayer brings God's favor, he says. Remember Eve's sin. You nod, eyes down, knowing better than to argue. After he leaves, you stare at the cross on your wall and wonder which has more power, faith or fear. As dusk falls, you light your last candle and watch its flame flicker in the gloom. Your husband returns from the fields, his hair damp from rain, and sits beside you in silence. You share a supper of boiled beans and rye bread, dipping pieces in weak ale to soften the crusts. You eat slowly, savoring every bite, aware that tomorrow's meal may be even leaner. Before bed, you place the rabbit's heart and rosemary charm under your pillow, just as the wise woman instructed. You whisper a quiet prayer, hedging your bets. You know, as every medieval woman did, that survival takes both faith and a little bit of luck. Here, see your quirky tidbit for tonight. Some villagers believed that sleeping with a knife under your mattress protected mother and child from night spirits. You tuck your husband's smallest blade under the straw, just in case. Better a dull knife than a sharp regret. Sleep is slow to come. The wind rattles the shutters, and you listen for the sound of rain on the roof. Instead, you hear the steady, rhythmic thump of your own heart, echoed, you like to imagine, by the tiny heart inside you. You drift at last into a dreamless sleep, cradling your belly, surrounded by herbs, prayers, and the thousand little superstitions that hold your world together. It's not even light yet when you wake. Not really. The sky outside is that murky blue that means another hour until sunrise, and the chill seems sharper today. You sigh and stretch, already bracing for the effort it takes to heave yourself upright. Every joint and muscle registering a slow protest. Being pregnant in the village is a kind of full-body job, one that never clocks out. Not even in the quiet hours when everyone else is dreaming of fattened geese or mended roofs. Today, as on every day, there is work waiting. You slide off your straw pallet and shuffle to the hearth, shivering as you pass the open window with its crooked shutter. The fire has gone cold in the night, and your toes curl against the dirt floor. It's up to you to coax flame from the embers, just as it's up to you to coax life out of your own weary bones. Breakfast, if it could be called that, is more thin gruel left over from last night's supper, stretched with water and a handful of limp greens. Your husband has already left for the fields, of course. The village is so silent you can hear the snuffling of the neighbor's pig through the wall. You eat standing up, leaning against the mantel for support, spooning broth into your mouth and trying not to think about how tired you are, before the sun has even risen. Today's chores begin outside, hauling water from the well again and scrubbing clothes in the icy stream that snakes through the village edge. Your hands go numb, turning red and raw, but the work has to be done. There is no such thing as a day off here, and no, one not your husband, not the other women. Not even the midwife suggests that being pregnant should change that. You notice, not for the first time, the way your breath comes shorter now. It's harder to bend and lift, and sometimes you need to stop and brace yourself against the side of the house, pretending to adjust your skirt. But you do it anyway. Fields won't wait for you to catch your breath, as your mother used to say. And she was right. By mid-morning, you're in the vegetable patch, kneeling to weed around the carrots and onions. The sun is still weak but climbing, and you feel its warmth on your shoulders. Your neighbor, a woman with 4 living children, and the kind of sturdy arms that could carry a calf, stops to gossip. You shouldn't be working so hard, she scolds. But there's no real criticism in it, just the acknowledgement that you're all trapped in the same endless cycle. You know, when I was pregnant with my youngest, she begins launching into one of her favorite stories. I carried a sack of flour from here to the mill and back. That's what kept my hips strong. She grins, but her eyes linger on your hands, rough and cracked, and the way you shift uncomfortably in the dirt. She means well, but you wish she'd let you be tired in peace. After she leaves, you mutter your thanks for the advice and get back to work. Catch yourself daydreaming about what it might be like to rest. Really rest, for an entire day. No weeding, no washing, no hauling, just lying in the shade, maybe with cool water and fresh bread. It's the sort of daydream you've learned to banish quickly here. Dreaming doesn't fill bellies or mend clothes. Lunch is another thin soup, this time thickened with barley. You eat it slowly, savoring the warmth, and stare at the spoon as if it might offer some kind of answer. What would you give for cheese? For a handful of ripe cherries? For a slab of salted pork? Cravings become your daily companions, little ghosts that flutter in and out of your mind. And just when you think you might finally be able to rest, someone raps on your door. It's your husband's cousin, red-faced from the walk, and with gossip burning in her eyes. She barrels in, settling herself by the fire, and starts talking before you can even offer her a seat. "Did you hear about the shoemaker's wife?" she asks. "Fell in the stream yesterday? Everyone says it's because she saw a magpie. Bad luck, that is. Seeing a magpie with an empty belly means a difficult birth." She shakes her head as if this is scientific fact. Historians still argue whether such superstitions helped or hindered medieval women. On one hand, they gave a kind of structure to fear. On the other, they piled more anxiety onto women already carrying too much. Your cousin-in-law stays for almost an hour, relaying every scrap of rumor and worry she can think of, from whose cow has stopped giving milk to which villager has been accused of stealing eggs. You nod along, knowing you remember only half of it. Your mind drifts as she talks, your thoughts slipping back to your aching hips and the slow, persistent pressure building in your back. Finally, she stands to leave, pressing your hand and wishing you good luck and an easy time. You're not sure which you believe in less, luck or ease. Hang Chatipdi, the day stretches on. You fetch more water, sweep the cottage, and try to ignore the sharp pinching cramps in your lower belly. You tell yourself it's just fatigue, just hunger, just another day. The cramps don't quite fade. You remember the midwife's instructions? Rest if you feel pain. Drink water, rub your belly with warmed oil if you can spare it. You do your best, though the only oil you have smells more of fish than of flowers. As the afternoon cools into evening, you take a slow walk through the village green, just to feel the breeze. The air smells of wood smoke and rain-soaked earth, tinged with the faint sweetness of wildflowers. You close your eyes, savoring the brief moment of calm. On your way back, you pass the old stone cross that marks the edge of the village, a relic left from when your grandmother was young. Women used to tie scraps of cloth to it, prayers for safe labor, for healthy children, for mercy. Some scraps are still there, bleached white by sun and wind. You run your fingers over the stone and whisper your own hope, too quiet for anyone but the evening birds to hear. Back in your cottage, the chores are done for the day, at least as much as they ever are. You settle by the fire with your sewing, another smock, this one for the baby. Though you keep pricking your fingers and the stitches come out crooked. Still, you keep at it. There's a quiet magic in preparing, even if you know nothing is guaranteed. Your husband returns at dusk, mud-stained and silent, and you share a meal of stewed lentils and a heel of bread. I asks how you're feeling, and you manage a smile. "Still here," you say, and that's enough. After supper, the midwife stops by for her rounds. She checks your pulse, listens to your belly, and tells you the cramps are nothing to worry about. "Just a baby stretching, getting comfortable," she says with a wry smile. Babies never care if it's convenient. She leaves you a small bag of dried nettles for tea, saying it will keep your blood strong. You thank her and slip her a hunk of cheese from your secret stash. She winks, and for a moment you both feel like conspirators in some small rebellion. As the fire burns low, you drink the nettled tea and feel the day's weight sink from your shoulders. Here's a curious fact for the night. Some villages believe that a pregnant woman should avoid looking at the moon, lest her child be born with a crescent-shaped birthmark. You chuckle softly, glancing up at the gap in the roof where moonlight sneaks through. Superstition or not, the moon is beautiful tonight, soft and full and glowing like a lantern hung in the sky. You nestle into your straw pallet, wrapping the rough blanket around your shoulders, and let your eyes drift shut. The wind murmurs at the eaves, and the scent of earth and fire fills your dreams. For a while you float on the edge of sleep, neither here nor there, safe in the knowledge that for tonight at least, you've made it through another day. Sleep is a tricky business these days. You wake so often in the night that sometimes it's hard to tell where the dream ends and the waking world begins. Your hips ache, the weight of your belly tugs at your spine. Sometimes the baby turns, and you lie there feeling as if your insides have become someone else's playground. Even the straw mattress, thin as a whisper, feels too lumpy and uneven. You listen to the village noises, the lowing of cows, a fox yipping somewhere beyond the fence, the distant bark of a dog, and wonder if anyone else is lying awake, staring at the ceiling, counting breaths. But today's a new day. The sun leaks through the chinks in the wall, painting golden lines on the floor. You breathe in the scent of earth and damp that lingers after last night's rain, and for a moment it's almost pleasant. You stretch as far as you dare, feeling your joints pop and crackle, and you mutter a prayer that the baby will stay quiet while you get your bearings. Pregnancy is a public event here. Can't hide it, not with your stomach announcing the news to anyone with eyes. Every step outside draws comments. You head to the common well with your empty bucket, feeling the eyes of the baker's wife, the cobbler's mother, and half the children in the lane following you. Don't let her lift anything heavy, someone says, usually after you've already finished the task. Another neighbor gives you a clove of garlic. Just in case you feel faint, she says, pressing it into your palm with a wink. You nod, tuck the garlic in your pocket, and keep moving. As you approach the well, a group of older women is already there, talking in hushed tones that turn to loud laughter when they spot you. They all have advice, of course. Eat more beans. That's what I did. My boys all came out strong as oxen. Don't eat beans. It'll give the baby a temper. If your right hand itches, it means the child will have curly hair. How the advice overlaps and contradicts itself. A patchwork of folk wisdom that somehow makes less sense the more you hear it. You draw your water in silence, half listening, half dreaming. You wish you could disappear for a while. Hide in the woods like the old stories say witches do. Maybe just until the baby comes, or until the gossip dies down. But there's nowhere to hide in a village this small, and you're needed at home. You lug the water back. No easy feat with your swollen ankles and aching back. Once inside, you prop your feet up for a minute and look at your hands, the rough fingers cracked and stained. You used to be proud of your hands, nimble and strong, good for spinning and sewing. Now they feel clumsy, swollen, as if your whole body is being reshaped from the inside out. Here, your historical fact for today. Medieval village life meant that everyone knew everyone's business, especially when it came to pregnancies. Privacy barely existed. Births, deaths, and everything in between became common property. Discussed at the well, in the fields. Even in the pews on Sunday 1. Sometimes you wish for a little quiet, a corner of the world that belonged only to you. As you start the day's chores, you try to remember all the warnings and proverbs you've heard today. You be careful not to sneeze too hard. Bad for the baby's spirit. And you step carefully over the black cat that likes to sun itself by your doorstep. You tie a ribbon around your wrist, as the wise woman advised, to keep away the evil eye. Is it nonsense? It may be. But in a world where so little is certain, you cling to every promise of safety, no matter how odd. Hangcha, tipticey, you tend the goats, scoop up chicken feed, and shoo a pair of giggling children from your doorway. One of them, the miller's youngest, stares at your belly and asks, "Is it true the baby can hear us talking?" You smile and nod. Maybe you'd better be nice, just in case. The children gasp and run off, whispering. You shake your head. At least you made them laugh. You notice with a flicker of amusement that everyone around you now feels entitled to your body. Women reach out to pat your belly, never asking, just doing. While men joke about how round you've gotten, as if you're a pumpkin left too long in the sun. It's as if your pregnancy is some sort of public property to be inspected and commented on freely. The midwife visits after midday, sees a wiry woman with sharp elbows and a permanent scowl, but she knows her craft. She asks how you're feeling, presses gently on your belly, and tells you to eat more greens. It's not for you, she says, for the little one. She reminds you to rest, though you both know how laughable that advice is. Before she leaves, she hands you a small pouch of dried rose petals. Steep this in water and drink it tonight, she says. It'll help you sleep. You nod and tuck the pouch away. Historians still argue whether midwives were more trusted or feared in their villages. Some treated them as miracle workers. Others whispered that they dabbled in things best left alone. Sometimes a midwife's fortunes could turn on a single birth, miraculous or disastrous. In the afternoon, you walk slowly to the monastery gardens at the edge of the village. The monks keep a patch of herbs behind their walls: sage, lavender, penuriel, and more. You heard rumors that the monks trade some of their precious plants to women like you, quietly away from the priest's disapproving eyes. Today, you barter a small bundle of spun wool for a handful of dried sage and 3 sprigs of rue. The young monk who meets you is shy, barely old enough to grow a proper beard. He glances around to make sure no one's watching, then presses the bundle into your hand. For health, he whispers, but you didn't get it from me. You nod, grateful for the kindness. As you walk back, you tuck the herbs into your apron and try not to think about all the things that could go wrong. Bleeding. Fever, a baby that refuses to turn, or one born too early. Every woman you know has a story. The neighbor who survived twins by luck alone. The girl who lost her firstborn and never smiled again. The midwife's own daughter who almost bled out on a winter's night. Sometimes you wonder how anyone dares to try at all. Still, the herbs in your pocket bring a strange comfort, even if they're only a handful of leaves and hope. Tonight you'll add sage to your stew and rue to your bath, and you'll whisper a thank you to the silent monk as you do. Dinner is simple but filling. Bean pottage and a crust of bread. You eat in companionable silence with your husband, listening to the pop and hiss of the fire. Afterward, you stitch by candlelight, hands clumsy with sleepiness, making a new bonnet for the baby. The fabric is rough, but you embroider a tiny row of flowers along the edge, just for luck. Here est your quirky tidbit. Some villagers believe that tying an eel skin around your thigh could ensure a pain-free birth. You think about the slippery creatures that lurk in the stream and decide you'll stick to herbs and prayers? Night falls, and you're back in bed, exhausted but still restless. You can't get comfortable, shifting from side to side. Try the rose petal tea, savoring its sweetness, and listen to your husband's breathing, steady and deep beside you. You wonder if he dreams of the baby, if he worries like you do, or if he just prays for a healthy harvest and enough food for another mouth. Before you close your eyes, you press your hand to your belly, feeling the baby roll and stretch inside. Stay safe, you whisper. Just a little longer. The candle gutters, then goes out. You lie in the darkness, thinking of garlic cloves, sage, and all the strange hopes tucked into every corner of your life. You drift off at last, soothed by the simple, sleepy chorus of the village settling in for the night. Hung Chatipti. It's raining when you wake, the kind of steady, endless drizzle that soaks the earth and seeps into every bone. The sky's a uniform gray, and for a moment, you wonder if the sun will even bother showing its face today. The cottage is colder than usual. You pull the blanket tighter around your shoulders, feeling the heaviness of your own breath in the chilly air. Your hands instinctively find your belly, tracing slow. Sleepy circles as the child within turns and stretches, reminding you with a dull ache that you are never truly alone. You sit up slowly, swinging your legs over the side of the bed, feeling the old mattress sigh beneath you. Your ankles are swollen worse than yesterday, and your fingers are puffy, the joints stiff and stubborn. As you stand, the world tilts for a moment, a brief swoop of dizziness that's become almost familiar. You steady yourself against the rough wall and breathe through it. There's nothing unusual about feeling faint when you're pregnant, the older women say. Just your body making room. They tell you, as if that explains everything. Sometimes you wish your body had come with instructions, preferably ones written in clear, simple words. You reach for the bundle of herbs the midwife left you yesterday, pressing the pouch to your nose and inhaling the earthy scent. The smell grounds you, and for a moment you almost feel strong. You tie your shawl tightly and shuffle to the hearth, coaxing a few small flames from last night's dying coals. There's no wood left inside, so you step out into the damp to fetch more, pulling your hood low to keep the rain from running down your neck. The village is muted in the rain, sounds muffled and shapes blurred. Smoke rises slowly from a handful of chimneys, twisting into the sky and vanishing. The pigs snuffle in the mud, their tails wagging, and the hens huddle under the eaves, feathers fluffed against the cold. Your husband is already gone off to work with the other men, plowing or repairing fences or doing whatever needs to be done, always with the same tired resignation. You trudge to the woodpile, feet sinking into the slick grass, your skirts already damp and clinging. The pile is nearly gone, and you make a mental note to ask your husband to chop more tonight. You manage a small armful, hugging it to your chest, and shuffle back inside, shaking off droplets as best you can. You set to work making porridge, scraping the last of the oats from the bottom of the sack. You mix in a little honey from the wise woman and a pinch of dried marigold. The taste is sweet and floral, and you savor every bite, wishing it would last longer. You eat by the window, watching the rain trace crooked lines down the glass. And you think about all the things you wish you could change. Warmer shoes, a thicker blanket, the chance to rest a little longer. Once breakfast is done, you face the chores, sweeping the floor, emptying the chamber pot, checking the root cellar for signs of mold. The damp has crept in everywhere. You find a soft patch in the wall and wedge a bit of old cloth into the crack, hoping it will help. The wind rattles the shutters and you sigh, wrapping your shawl tighter and lighting a second candle to chase away the gloom. It's not long before a knock comes at the door. It's the monk from the monastery garden, his habits spattered with mud. Carrying a bundle of fresh herbs wrapped in linen. "A gift for you," he says quietly, pressing the bundle into your hands. "The midwife said you might need these soon." You thank him, and he smiles, eyes kind and gentle. "We pray for you every morning," he adds, almost shyly, before disappearing back into the rain. You untie the bundle on the table, yarrow, lavender, sage, and a sprig of pennyroyal. You're not sure what each is meant for, but you feel safer having them nearby. Historians still argue whether monastery gardens were havens of healing or just another form of hope. Places where prayer and plant grew side by side, sometimes for good, sometimes for ill. You tuck the herbs into your apron and decide to visit the midwife, hoping she might give you more advice. You walk slowly through the village, head down against the drizzle, passing neighbors huddled in doorways. The cobbler's wife waves and calls, "You're glowing, dear?" "Good omen." Another woman leans close as you pass, whispering, "Keep a penny under your tongue during labor. It'll keep you from biting through." You nod and smile, pocketing the advice along with all the others. The midwife's cottage is a welcoming place. Warm and bright, with dried flowers hanging from the beams and a fire crackling in the hearth. She sits you by the fire and presses a mug of hot water into your hands, watching as you sip. She examines your ankles, presses gently on your belly, and listens for the baby's heartbeat. "Steady as a drum," she says, eyes crinkling. "You're doing well, though you look tired." You tell her about the dizziness, the swelling, the ache in your joints. She nods as if she's heard it all 1,000 times. "Every woman's body is different," she says, "but pain means you need to rest." She gives you a small vial of oil, instructing you to rub it into your feet each night. It won't cure the swelling, but it will help you sleep. She also gives you a charm, a tiny pouch filled with rosemary and salt to wear around your neck. "For luck," she says, "and for courage. Before you leave," she whispers another old wife's tale, "if the wind blows from the east on the day you labor, your child will have a gentle nature." You smile, tucking the charm under your smock. You don't know if you believe it, but hope is a fragile thing, and you'll take it where you can find it. Hangchet. Tiptease. You head home as the rain slackens. It's feeling heavier, but strangely lighter too, relieved to be cared for, if only for an hour. The village is a patchwork of small kindnesses and passing cruelties, and you cling to the kindnesses when you can. Lunch is a simple meal of boiled turnip and a crust of bread softened with broth. You eat slowly, savoring the warmth, and stare at the spoon as if it might offer some kind of answer. What would you give for cheese? For a handful of ripe cherries? For a slab of salted pork? Cravings become your daily companions, little ghosts that flutter in and out of your mind. And just when you think you might finally be able to rest, someone raps on your door. It's your husband's cousin, red-faced from the walk, and with gossip burning in her eyes. She barrels in, settling herself by the fire, and starts talking before you can even offer her a seat. Did you hear about the shoemaker's wife? She asks. Fell in the stream yesterday. Okay, everyone says it's because she saw a magpie. Bad luck, that is. Seeing a magpie with an empty belly means a difficult birth. She shakes her head as if this is scientific fact. Historians still argue whether such superstitions helped or hindered medieval women. On one hand, they gave a kind of structure to fear. On the other, they piled more anxiety onto women already carrying too much. Your cousin-in-law stays for almost an hour, relaying every scrap of rumor and worry she can think of, from whose cow has stopped giving milk to which villager has been accused of stealing eggs. You nod along, knowing you remember only half of it. Your mind drifts as she talks, your thoughts slipping back to your aching hips and the slow, persistent pressure building in your back. Finally, she stands to leave, pressing your hand and wishing you good luck and an easy time. You're not sure which you believe in less, luck or ease. The day stretches on. You fetch more water, sweep the cottage, and try to ignore the sharp pinching cramps in your lower belly. You tell yourself it's just fatigue, just hunger, just another day. But the cramps don't quite fade. You remember the midwife's instructions? Rest if you feel pain. Drink water, rub your belly with warmed oil if you can spare it. You do your best, though the only oil you have smells more of fish than of flowers. As the afternoon cools into evening, you take a slow walk through the village green, just to feel the breeze. The air smells of wood smoke and rain-soaked earth, tinged with the faint sweetness of wild flowers. You close your eyes, savoring the brief moment of calm. On your way back, you pass the old stone cross that marks the edge of the village, a relic left from when your grandmother was young. Women used to tie scraps of cloth to it, prayers for safe labor, for healthy children, for mercy. Some scraps are still there, bleached white by sun and wind. You run your fingers over the stone and whisper your own hope, too quiet for anyone but the evening birds to hear. Back in your cottage, the chores are done for the day, at least as much as they ever are. You settle by the fire with your sewing. Another smock, this one for the baby. Though you keep pricking your fingers and the stitches come out crooked, still you keep at it. There's a quiet magic in preparing, even if you know nothing is guaranteed. Your husband returns at dusk, mud-stained and silent, and you share a meal of stewed lentils and a heel of bread. He asks how you're feeling, and you manage a smile. Still here, you say, and that's enough? After supper, the midwife stops by for her rounds. She checks your pulse, listens to your belly, and tells you the cramps are nothing to worry about. Just a baby stretching, getting comfortable, she says with a wry smile. Babies never care if it's convenient. She leaves you a small bag of dried nettles for tea, saying it will keep your blood strong. You thank her and slip her a hunk of cheese from your secret stash. She winks, and for a moment you both feel like conspirators in some small rebellion. As the fire burns low, you drink the nettle tea and feel the day's weight sink from your shoulders. Here's a curious fact for the night. Some villages believe that a pregnant woman should avoid looking at the moon, lest her child be born with a crescent-shaped birthmark. You chuckle softly, glancing up at the gap in the roof where moonlight sneaks through. Superstition or not, the moon is beautiful tonight, soft and full and glowing like a lantern hung in the sky. You nestle into your straw pallet, wrapping the rough blanket around your shoulders, and let your eyes drift shut. The wind murmurs at the eaves, and the scent of earth and fire fills your dreams. For a while, you float on the edge of sleep, neither here nor there. It's safe in the knowledge that for tonight at least, you've made it through another day. Hang chetip tis, the morning after a rainstorm always smells different. The world feels scrubbed clean, if only for a little while. When you open your eyes, the first thing you see is the soft yellow light snaking past the window shutter, painting streaks across the cottage floor. Your body aches, but it's a familiar ache by now. You lie still for a moment, listening to the slow creak of the rafters as the house settles around you. Somewhere outside, a woodpecker is already hard at work, tapping a hollow rhythm that sounds almost like distant drumming. You ease yourself upright and swing your legs over the edge of the bed, giving your swollen feet a chance to adjust. The baby inside you feels heavier every day, pressing down on your spine, making you short of breath even before you've started moving. But there's work to do. There is always work to do. That's the rule of the village, and pregnancy is no excuse. You shuffle to the window and lift the shutter, letting in a rush of fresh air. The world outside is glistening, puddles in the muddy lane. Droplets clinging to every blade of grass, hens pecking at worms newly surfaced. You spot the neighbor's little girl dancing barefoot in the mud, hair streaming behind her like a flag. You smile, and for a moment, wish you could join her, lose yourself in the simple joy of movement. You're hungry this morning, a change from yesterday. The scent of last night's stew still lingers, and you spoon up what's left, mixing in a bit of cheese and some chopped greens. It tastes better than you expect, and you savor every mouthful, grateful that for once, your stomach isn't rebelling. The baby shifts, and you press your palm gently against your belly, feeling the small rhythmic flutters beneath your skin. There's a knock at the door, sharper than usual. You answer to find the parish priest, his cloak still damp from his walk. He steps inside, glancing around your little home with that look, half pity, half judgment you've grown used to over the years. He sits by the hearth, warming his hands, and asks how you're faring. Each day is a blessing, you answer, because that's what you're supposed to say. He asks if you've prayed for an easy labor. You nod. He reminds you of the importance of keeping your thoughts pure, especially in these final weeks, and cautions that Eve's mistake was a warning for all women. Childbirth is suffering, he says, but it brings new life. You must accept the pain and trust in God's mercy. You smile and nod, biting your tongue so you dainty mention that pain for you is just part of the daily background noise. He gives you a blessing, muttering Latin under his breath, and presses a small wooden cross into your hand before leaving. You're supposed to keep it under your pillow until the baby is born. You add it to the growing collection. Herbs from the midwife, charms from the wise woman, a sprig of dried lavender, a coin from your neighbor, and now this cross. You wonder if anyone has ever tried to count just how many protections a pregnant woman can carry at once. Once he's gone, you head outside, breathing in the crisp, rain-scented air. You spot your friend at the next cottage over, waving you over with a smile. She's weaving a basket from green reeds, and you sit with her in the weak sun, hands busy as you trade news. You learn the miller's youngest has a cough. The blacksmith's wife is expecting again. The merchant's cart got stuck in the mud. Village life is nothing if not repetitive. She asks quietly if you're afraid. You shrug, looking at your hands. Everyone is, I suppose, but I try not to think about it too much. She nods. You both know what can happen. The stories of women lost in childbirth, of babies born and gone before sunrise, of mothers who bleed and never wake. It's a fear that never really leaves, only gets pushed aside while you sweep, cook, and tend the fire. You ask if she'll sit with you when the time comes. She squeezes your hand. Of course, no one should be alone in the village. This is as good as a promise, sworn on holy relics. You feel a knot loosen in your chest, the smallest comfort. The day passes in a string of chores. You clean the hearth, patch a torn apron, pick a few straggling greens from the garden, and shoo the hens from their favorite corner under the eaves. You rest often, rubbing your aching back, grateful for every excuse to sit in the sun and let your mind drift. By midday, the clouds have returned, and a cold wind sweeps through the lane. You close the window and light a small fire, brewing a tea from the monk's herbs. The scent fills the cottage, sharp and clean, and you sip it slowly, feeling the warmth spread through your tired limbs. A group of children pass by, laughing and singing, and one calls out to ask if your baby will be a boy or a girl. You answer, "I'll love whatever I get." And the other women nearby nod approvingly. Secretly, though, you wonder. You think of the names you've whispered to the growing belly, the dreams you've had, some hopeful, some frightening. You remember what your own mother told you? Dreams mean nothing, but hope is everything. You cling to that now as the shadows in the cottage grow longer. In the afternoon, you visit the neighbor who's laid up with a twisted ankle. She's in pain, swollen and grumpy, but she brightens when you bring her a bowl of hot soup. You stay a while, chatting, helping to tidy her small room. Before you leave, she presses a scrap of blue cloth into your hand. Tie this around your waist before the birth, she says. It brought me luck. You add it to the growing bundle of tokens, your own little collection of the village's fears and wishes. Here's your mainstream historical fact. Churching, a ritual of purification after childbirth, was a major event for medieval women. Until you'd attended churching, you close your eyes and drift towards sleep, mind full of blessings, fears, and the tiny stubborn hope that tomorrow will bring you one day closer to the end. Here's your quirky tidbit. Some villagers believed that if you dreamed of blood, you'd have a boy. If you dreamed of water, a girl. Last night you dreamed of both, a river running red, winding through a green field. You have no idea what that means, but you take it as a sign that anything is possible. You sleep with your hand on your belly, tokens close, prayers whispered, and dreams drifting with the rising wind. You wake to voices outside your window, a chorus of early morning greetings half shouted across the muddy lane as neighbors pass with baskets, buckets, and babies on their hips. You're slow to rise, every muscle in your body complaining, but the new aches have become familiar companions. Your belly feels heavy as a harvest gourd, and the little one inside seems determined to stretch in all directions at once. You give your side a gentle rub, murmuring, "Easy now," as if the baby might actually listen. The sky outside is low and gray, promising another day of damp and drizzle. You pull your shawl tight around your shoulders before you even step from bed, feeling the chill that seems to live in your bones lately. You think back to the warm, clear days of your early pregnancy and marvel at how quickly the seasons turn when you mark them by the steady, relentless swelling of your own body. You try to get started on your morning chores, but nothing moves as fast as it used to. Not your fingers, not your feet, certainly not your patience. You shuffle to the fire, stoking the coals back to life and setting a pot of water to heat for porridge. While it simmers, you prop yourself on a stool and try to find comfort, shifting your weight from side to side. Breakfast is thin but filling, sweetened with the last spoonful of honey from the wise woman. As you eat, your husband comes in from the early shift in the fields, his boots caked in mud. He plants a kiss on your head and asks, "Any news from the little one?" You shake your head with a small laugh. News, as if the baby could just poke its head out and deliver a message. But you know what he means. Each day feels like holding your breath, waiting for the sign that labor is near. After breakfast, you tidy the cottage. Even with your belly leading the way and your back groaning, you are determined to keep the space as neat as you can. Sweep away the muddy footprints, scrub the pot, and lay a clean cloth on the table.
Ow.
Cleanliness isn't just for pride, it's for safety. The midwife's warnings echo in your mind. A dirty room brings fever. Fever brings the grave. You pause at the window, watching a pair of sparrows flit between the eaves, their feathers fluffed against the chill. A thin ribbon of sunlight pushes through the clouds, golden and warm, and you stand there a moment longer, face lifted, letting the rare light soak into your skin. It's one of those small private joys that no one can take from you. You hear the sound of voices rising in the lane again, and you know what's coming before the knock lands on your door. It's the village gossip brigade. 3 women in aprons, heads bent close, their laughter carrying even before they step inside. They bring gifts, half a loaf of bread, a pat of butter, and news, always news. They settle around your table, quick to offer opinions and stories. "I dreamed of a flock of geese before my Sophie was born," says one. "She's loud as a goose to this day," another laughs. "I drank nettle tea every night and still had a baby with hair like a hedgehog. Nothing helps with that." The third, oldest of all, leans forward with a warning. "Don't let anyone sit at the foot of your bed while you in labor. It keeps the baby from coming." They all nod as if this is gospel. The conversation drifts, as it always does, to speculation. "You're carrying wide. Must be a girl." No. Look at the way her feet are swollen. That's a boy. Sure as sunrise." Nod and offer tea, knowing that nothing will stop them from their guessing. Historians still argue whether these endless predictions offered comfort or simply reminded women how little control they had. Sometimes it feels like both. You mention the priest's visit and his stern words about purity and suffering. The women snort in unison. Easy for him to say, one grumbles. He's never had to push anything bigger than a sermon. You can't help but laugh, the sound surprising you. Light and genuine, cutting through the gloom. After they leave, You sit by the window and pick up your sewing. Your fingers are clumsy, but the rhythm is soothing. You're mending a swaddling cloth for the baby, white, a bit threadbare, but soft. You embroider a row of crooked daisies along the edge. Your mother taught you to sew this way, and every stitch feels like a prayer. You find yourself humming an old song, half remembered from childhood, and for a moment, you're not a woman waiting for pain. You're just a girl with needle and thread, hopeful for the future. Hangcha, tiptiasi, you re-startled from your reverie by the arrival of the midwife. She's brisk today, voice a little sharper than usual. She checks your belly, listens to the baby, and makes you lie back so she can feel how the child is lying. Head down? Good, she mutters. She eyes your ankles, puffy and red, and tuts. You need to rest, truly rest, or you'll have nothing left for the hard part. She hands you a folded scrap of paper, rare and precious, for it comes from the monastery. Instructions, she says. The monks say boiled nettle and mint will ease the afterpains. Yes. You ask quietly if she'll stay with you when the time comes. Her eyes soften, of course. You're not the first to ask, and you won't be the last. She leaves you with a small bottle of oil, instructing you to rub it on your lower back every night. It won't cure the swelling, but it will help you sleep. She also gives you a charm, a tiny pouch filled with rosemary and salt to wear around your neck. For luck, she says, and for courage. Before you leave, she whispers another old wife's tale. If the wind blows from the east on the day you labor, your child will have a gentle nature. You smile, tucking the charm under your smock. You don't know if you believe it, but hope is a fragile thing, and you'll take it where you can find it. You head home as the rain slackens, feeling heavier but strangely lighter too, relieved to be cared for if only for an hour. The village is a patchwork of small kindnesses and passing cruelties, and you cling to the kindnesses when you can. Lunch is a simple meal of boiled turnip and a crust of bread softened with broth. You eat slowly, pausing to watch the droplets race down the window pane. The baby kicks, and you press your hand against your belly, whispering, "Not long now." You wonder who your child will be, boy or girl, healthy or frail, dreamer or doer. The questions pile up in your mind, tangled with all your fears and hopes. Afternoon brings a lull in the rain, and you decide to tidy the cottage. Folding linens and mending small tears in the baby's blanket. Your fingers are clumsy, but the work is soothing. Outside the village is quiet. It's only the sound of rainwater trickling through the gutters and the occasional shout from a distant field. Here's your mainstream historical fact. In many medieval villages, women relied almost entirely on one another for support during pregnancy and birth. Men were rarely present, and the network of mothers, midwives, and neighbors became a lifeline. You rub the midwife's oil into your feet, tie the charm around your neck, and whisper a thank you to anyone who might be listening. You lie down at last, pulling the blanket high, feeling the warmth seep into your tired bones. You think of herbs, honey, old songs, and the many hands that have helped carry you this far. The baby turns one last time before sleep, and you drift off, dreaming of bright skies, safe passage, and the gentle promise of tomorrow. Hangchia, tip-tic. You wake before the sun again, to the familiar ache in your hips, and that odd fluttering tension deep inside your belly. Outside the world is quiet, just the soft clucking of hens under the floorboards, and the first distant call of a rooster. The fire has gone out, but you're already sweating beneath the woolen blanket, your body unable to decide if it's hot or cold. Your stomach grumbles, though you can't tell if you're hungry or nauseous. You push yourself upright, rolling carefully so as not to set off a new round of cramps. The mornings are always hardest. Every muscle is stiff, your ankles swollen, and your mouth tastes like the inside of a dusty cupboard. Still, you're used to it by now. The discomfort has become your companion, as routine as drawing water or sweeping the hearth. When you step outside, the air is sharp and wet, promising rain. The grass is slick, and the hens scatter in every direction as you cross the yard to the well, bucket in hand. Your neighbor's dog barks once, deep and annoyed, like even he resents having to start another day. You nod at the dog, wishing you could swap lives, just for a little while. Drawing water is the chore you dread the most. The bucket feels heavier with every passing week, and you have to brace yourself with both feet just to pull it up. Careful now, you whisper to yourself, as if the well might hear you and decide to cooperate for once. You think about how many times you've done this, hauling water, carrying wood, bending, and lifting, and you marvel that your body can still manage it, even half asleep and sore. Your hands shake as you pour water into the pot on the hearth. You glance at your reflection in the shiny surface. A tired face, cheeks round and flushed, eyes ringed with darkness. You look older than your years, and not for the first time, you wonder if anyone ever really feels young in a place like this. The villagers are already stirring. Smoke rises from a dozen chimneys, and voices drift across the green as the day's work begins. You hear the clang of the smithy-esque hammer and the shouts of children running barefoot in the mud. Even the cows seem restless, lowing from their muddy pen behind the butcher's hut. Today, Uwe decided to trade a handful of eggs and some dried nettles with the wise woman in exchange for a little honey. Something to sweeten your meals and soothe your throat. You wrap your shawl around your shoulders and make your way along the muddy lane, feeling the stares and whispers trail after you like midges. One old man offers a knowing smile. "Soon, eh?" he says, gesturing at your belly. You manage a laugh, but your hands grip the basket tighter. The wise woman-esque cottage is a jumble of immense, bundles of herbs drying from the rafters. Animal bones strung together and hung by the door, glass jars filled with cloudy liquids. She greets you with a nod, sizing you up with sharp dark eyes. "Still growing," she observes, glancing at your stomach. "Good sign, some don't." She doesn't sugarcoat things, and you're grateful for it. She knows what's at stake, better than anyone. You hand over the eggs and nettles. She tucks them away and returns with a small clay pot of honey and a pouch of marigold petals. "Take these. If you feel feverish," she instructs, "and save the honey for your weakest days." You thank her. The words a little choked, and ask if she has any more charms or advice. She leans in, lowering her voice. "Don't let anyone tie a red ribbon around your wrist, unless you trust their heart. And if you dream of rivers, sleep with a pinch of salt under your tongue." You nod, knowing better than to question her logic. As you leave, you glance up and see a pair of crows watching from the thatched roof. The wise woman laughs. "Good luck, those birds, as long as they fly away from your house, not toward it." You file that away, adding it to the endless catalog of village wisdom. Historians still argue whether such folk beliefs protected women or merely piled superstition onto suffering. Some say charms and tokens gave people agency over things they couldn't control. Others believe they just gave false hope, keeping fear alive with every new tale. For you, it's hard to know where faith ends and fear begins. Back at home, you manage a quiet moment by the hearth, sipping water and rubbing your swollen feet. You savor a spoonful of honey, sweet, golden, miraculous. It makes you feel almost rich. The baby shifts, and you smile, whispering, "That's for you, little one." You try to focus on the pleasant things, the warmth of the fire, the smell of drying lavender, the comforting weight of your growing child. You sew tiny stitches into a scrap of cloth, making a makeshift blanket. Your stitches are uneven, but the effort is what counts. A neighbor stops by bringing news from the mill. "The grindstone is broken," she says, "so flour will be scarce for a week." You exchange a few jokes about chewing barley raw. She helps you shell peas, while recounting a tale about her own first labor. "I screamed so loud the cow stopped giving milk for a day." She laughs, shaking her head, or so they say. "More likely the cows were just tired of being milked by my idiot brother." She asks if you've chosen a name. You shake your head. "Not yet. I don't want to anger the spirits by picking too soon." She nods in agreement. Names, after all, are powerful things. Some say naming the baby before it's born tempts fate. Others insist it's a sign of hope. You keep your favorite names tucked in your heart, safe and secret. The afternoon wears on. The rain finally arrives, drumming softly on the roof. You take comfort in the sound, rocking gently by the fire and letting the warmth seep into your bones. For a moment, you let yourself imagine a different life, a soft bed, food whenever you wanted it, the chance to simply rest when you're tired. It's a dream that feels impossibly far away, but it makes the long hours a little easier to bear. As evening comes, you notice how the gossip machine has ramped up. The baker's wife, the cobbler's mother, and a few others have started making predictions, sometimes helpful, sometimes hurtful. "You're carrying high must be twins," one whispers loudly enough for half the village to hear. Another claims she saw you walk past the church backward last week, and that means you'll have a stubborn child. You try to laugh it off, but some of the comments sting more than you let on. You learn to tune out most of it, focusing on the sound of your own breathing and the gentle movement of the child inside you. Still, you can't help but wonder what they'll say if anything goes wrong. Who will be blamed? What rumors will spread? How quickly kindness can curdle into suspicion here. Hang Chatip Ticey here. Your quirky tidbit for the night. In some villages, it was believed that if a pregnant woman saw a hare run across her path, her child would be born with a hare lip. It's a superstition that lingered for centuries despite all logic won. Your husband comes home late. It's covered in mud, and you share a meager supper of root vegetables and a few scraps of smoked fish. He asks how you're feeling, and you answer honestly. Tired, heavy, ready, I think. He grins and puts a gentle hand on your back. Soon, he says, and you almost believe him. Before bed, you check the charms above your door and the dried rosemary still hanging near your pillow. You whisper a prayer to the saints, the spirits, anyone who might listen. Let it be easy, let it be safe. The rain taps out a lullaby on the roof, and you drift into sleep, mind full of blessings. Fears and the tiny, stubborn hope that tomorrow will bring you one day closer to the end. You wake to a sharp, insistent ache in your hips, a reminder, as if you needed one, that there is less and less space inside you for both yourself and the baby. The candle from the priest has burned low, leaving a curl of wax on the windowsill. The sky is the soft gray of dawn, promising another day of drizzle and cold, but for a rare moment, you feel strangely calm, as if all the worries of the past weeks have pulled into a quiet, expectant hush. You push yourself up slowly, mindful of your swollen joints. It takes more effort than you'd like to shuffle across the room and relight the fire. The familiar chores wait for you, but your mind feels distant, fuzzy, hovering somewhere between hope and exhaustion. You run your hands over your belly, feeling the baby's slow movement, heavy, patient, as if they're waiting for the right moment too. You sip the last of the midwife's nettled tea, savoring its earthy taste. Breakfast is simple porridge with a sprinkle of marigold petals, a small luxury left from the bundle gifted by the monks. Your husband is out early, promising to return by midday with more wood for the fire and perhaps a bit of smoked fish if the miller's trade is good. You listen to his footsteps fade down the lane, then the gentle rise of village sounds, hens squawking, someone's child crying, the low rumble of men's voices preparing for a day's work. You try to busy yourself with sewing, patching a tear in your apron, but your mind drifts to the coming birth. Knife wooden cross, sprigs of rosemary and lavender, all of it ready as if simple objects could keep death at bay. A knock at the door interrupts your thoughts. It's the neighbor's eldest daughter, flushed with excitement, holding a jar of thick yellow butter. Mother says you'll need strength soon. She made extra, the girl explains, pressing it into your hands before running off into the morning mist. You smile, grateful. Every small kindness feels like a shield. You spread the butter on a hunk of bread, savoring its rich taste. For a moment, you allow yourself to believe that this time might be different, that you might come through strong, with a healthy child, and a quick recovery. The feeling is fragile, but it's enough to carry you through the next round of chores. You step outside to fetch water, mindful of the slippery path. The air is crisp, the earth soft underfoot. As you draw water from the well, the cobbler's wife calls out, "Have you picked a name yet?" You shake your head. Not until the baby's here, you call back, and she nods approvingly. In the village, naming too soon tempts fate. You remember a tale told by the old midwife, a woman who named her child in her 7th month, lost the baby to the fever. Wait, she always warned, and let the child speak their name with their first breath. Historians still argue whether this tradition arose from superstition or from grief, perhaps both. By late morning, your body is tired, each movement deliberate and slow. You pause to rest by the fire, massaging your swollen feet with the oil the midwife gave you. The warmth helps, easing some of the ache. You notice the baby's kicks have shifted slower, heavier, as if they too are running out of space. The midwife arrives, her arrival marked by a sharp knock and a gust of cold air. She brings with her the news that the butcher's wife has delivered a healthy boy, and that the baker's daughter is not far behind. Babies come in waves, she says, handing you a bundle of clean rags. Be ready. She checks your belly, presses gently, listens with practiced hands. Not long now, she says, her eyes kind but wary. Eat well, rest if you can. When it starts, send for me. She offers a few last pieces of advice. Don't let the room grow cold. Keep a pot of water boiling and burn rosemary to clear the air. She leaves you with a small vial for pain, but only if it gets bad, and a final quiet reassurance, you're stronger than you think. After she's gone, you tidy the cottage, moving slowly, setting things in their proper places. You wash your face, brush your hair, and lay out the clean smock you'll wear when the time comes. You sit by the window for a while, watching the clouds scuttle across the sky, letting the quiet settle around you like a blanket. Your husband returns in the afternoon, cheeks red from the wind, arms full of firewood and a small pouch of dried apples. He kisses your cheek and asks how you feel. Heavy, you say, and he grins. He tries to make you laugh with stories from the fields, the miller. Pig got loose and chased a half-dozen children before being cornered in the smithy. At least you're not chasing pigs, he teases. Not today, you reply, smiling despite yourself. Together, you prepare a simple supper. Stew thickened with barley, a wedge of cheese, slices of dried apple. You eat slowly, savoring the warmth. As you eat, he asks if you're scared. You pause, considering. A little, you admit, but I want to meet our child. He nods, his eyes shining in the candlelight. Me too. Hangcha, tip tisi after supper. You sit by the fire, your husband humming softly as he whittles a piece of wood. For luck, he says, shaping it into a tiny animal for the baby's cradle. The fire crackles, and you let yourself relax, rocked by the familiar sounds of home. Here's your mainstream historical fact. In medieval Europe, childbirth was considered both dangerous and sacred. The church saw it as a woman's burden, the result of original sin, but also as a time when a woman's prayers might be heard more clearly. That tension between fear and hope, shame and sanctity, colored every moment of pregnancy and birth. You remember another superstition, whispered by your grandmother. If you see a shooting star while in labor, your child will be blessed with good fortune. You glance out the window, hoping for clear skies, just in case. Later. You busy yourself with final preparations. You boil more water, stack linens, and tuck the tokens and charms near the bed. You light the priest's candle and let its small flame glow in the dim room. As darkness falls, you feel the first faint tightening in your belly, a small, persistent ache that comes and goes. You keep this to yourself for now, not wanting to alarm your husband or summon the midwife too soon. Instead, you settle into bed, hands folded over your belly, listening to the slow hush of rain on the roof. Each wave of discomfort passes, leaving you breathless but calm. Here as your quirky tidbit. Some villagers believed that labor could be eased by baking bread or churning butter while the pain started. The rhythm of work helping to bring the baby into the world. You think of the bread rising on the table and wonder if its fate is tied to your own. Sleep comes in fits and starts. You drift in and out. Dreams crowded with half-familiar faces. The sound of lullabies. The taste of honey and salt. The pains grow stronger, but you breathe through them, reminding yourself that you're not alone. Every woman in the village, every mother and grandmother, has faced this same long night. You wake at midnight, the ache sharper now, pulsing like a distant drumbeat. You press your hand to your belly and whisper to the child inside, "Not long now. I'm ready when you are." The rain eases, and in the sudden quiet, you find your courage. Light another candle and sit by the fire, waiting for the next wave to come. Outside, the village sleeps, but inside, the world is changing, slowly, surely, with each measured breath. By the time the sky begins to lighten again, your world has shrunk to the small, flickering circle of candlelight and the slow, regular pulse of pain. Cottage is hushed, except for the sigh of the wind and your own breathing. You rise and walk the room, trying to ease the ache in your back. The baby feels lower, heavier. Every movement, a reminder that you re-getting close to that moment you've dreaded and longed for in equal measure. You drape your shawl over your shoulders and lean against the cool wall, listening to the distant village sounds as the day awakens. Somewhere a rooster crows, a dog barks twice. The rain is gone now, leaving the thatch glistening and the air sharp with the smell of clean earth. You watch a single sparrow flit from fence post to rooftop, and for a moment the sight steadies your nerves. You try to eat a little soft bread dipped in warm broth, a bite of apple. Each contraction builds and fades like a wave, and you keep your mind busy by counting the time between them, whispering numbers under your breath. You think about all the advice you've received, all the superstitions and warnings. Don't sit with your back to the door. Keep rosemary in the fire. Breathe like the tide. You do them all because at this point, why not? Even your husband, hovering anxiously at the edge of the room, doesn't question it. By mid-morning, the pains have settled into a steady rhythm. You know now, with a certainty that's both terrifying and calming, that this is it. You send your husband to fetch the midwife and your closest neighbor. He doesn't want to leave, but you shoo him out with a shaky smile and a "don't worry, I'll be all right." You're not sure you believe it, but you know he needs to. He returns quickly, the midwife bustling in with her basket of tools and rags, the neighbor trailing with a bucket of fresh water and a nervous, excited grin. They move with practiced efficiency, laying out clean cloths, stoking the fire, boiling water, shooing your husband out of the room. He's sent to chop wood and pace the lane, which he does without complaint. The midwife examines you, hands gentle but firm. "You're strong," she says, "and the baby's in a good position." She tells you to walk if you can, or sit and rock if you must. Keep moving. Let gravity help. Your neighbor squeezes your hand, humming a tune her mother taught her, a lullaby meant to soothe restless children and frighten mothers alike. The pains come quicker now, sharper, and you cling to the advice you've gathered. Keep your breath slow and steady. Rest when you can. Don't fight the pain. You find yourself reciting prayers, old charms, half-remembered songs. The midwife murmurs encouragement, her voice a low, steady anchor in the swirling current of your fear. Historians still argue whether women suffered more or less in these close-knit villages. Some say the constant presence of mothers, sisters, neighbors brought comfort, while others believe the ever-watchful eyes made fear and pain more isolating. For you, right now, it's both. You're never truly alone, but the pain is something only you can carry. Here's your mainstream historical fact. In medieval times, few women labored entirely alone. The room might fill with other women, each offering advice, prayers, and the weight of their own memories. Some births were fast, almost easy. Others lasted day and night as time lost all meaning. The morning returns with a kind of softness you haven't felt in months. The world outside is wrapped in dew, the earth damp and forgiving, and the sky pale with early sun. Inside the cottage it is still, not the nervous stillness before a storm or a birth, but the thick, golden stillness that comes after something tremendous has passed. The baby is quiet, tucked beneath a woolen cloth you hemmed yourself, your face like a painted icon, rosy and impossibly small. Your body, on the other hand, is loud. Everything hurts. It's not the sharp agony of labor, but the deep, pulsing soreness of a body that has done too much and knows it. Your belly is soft and strange, your back is sore, your thighs stiff, and your chest aches in that swollen, tender way that means the milk is coming in. Even your fingers are sore. You marvel at how even stillness can ache. As the quiet settles around you, the gentle crackle of the fire and the soft, rhythmic sound of your baby's breathing fill the cottage. You close your eyes, letting your head rest back against the rough cottage wall, feeling your muscles loosen, your thoughts soften. The firelight flickers over the baby's cheek, and your breath syncs with theirs. You feel the warmth of your own body again, not the burden of it, but its presence, its proof. You are real. You are alive. The herbs above the hearth sway slightly. The cradle creaks once and stills. The candle melts into a pool of wax. The village sleeps, and so do you. You drift, not toward dreams, but into something quieter, a space without worry or sound. Just breath, just warmth, just rest. You did it. It's over now. Sleep. Sweet dreams.